Hi, welcome to this short micro lecture on how to frame an issue. Framing an issue well and also verifying that there's adequate research to support this issue may take some time, but it will really pay off in the long run as you're working on this semester project. And of course, framing the issue is right at the top of the 6 guidelines for critical inquiry. Before we figure out what type of judgment it is, what the arguments are, what the background is, how we're going to evaluate the arguments, or what our conclusion is, or how we're going to communicate it, we have to know what is our issue. And here are the 4 criteria for a good inquiry issue. Like the 6 guiding questions of inquiry, these are worth memorizing. First, is the inquiry in the form of a question? I have to know what I'm asking before I can answer it. Is it precise and focused? Not only to lead to a successful project, but also to be able to get the project done on time. Is it important or of some controversy? Is this issue worthy of my time? And is it framed in neutral terms? If I start the issue framed in neutral terms, I will be more open to hearing all the pros and cons arguments, and eventually I can come to my conclusion. I've always been interested in coral reefs, so let's say I want to make my semester project the coral reefs. Well, does that fit the 4 criteria? And it's not in the form of a question, and it's not very focused or specific, is it? And it's definitely not controversial as stated. Coral reefs, what does that mean? Am I talking about the plants, the animals, the future, the past, the corals in Hawaii? Who knows? So I have to work a little bit harder. Here's a question. Are the coral reefs dying? It's definitely in the form of a question. What do we think about the other criteria? Not very specific, and at this point, not very controversial. Pretty much it's evident that coral reefs around the world are dying. And here's a reputable website that will verify for me that this is not really a controversial question anymore, unfortunately. Well, if I quickly actually scan this EPA article, I might get some ideas to narrow down my coral reef project. Here, by the way, is some evidence for the Caribbean islands. Coral reef cover on reefs has been reduced by 80% in the last 3 decades. Looking through this article, I found that short and long-term management actions are an issue. I found that excessive sediment and nutrients are an issue. I found that all these different projects are being used to try to improve the situation for coral reefs. I found that coral reefs are constrained by light, temperature, salinity, and nutrient concentration, and I found trash and microplastics are an issue. Well, to be honest, the EPA website was just giving me a list of programs that they had started that were working in different places, and I wasn't feeling that this was going to be a controversial issue that I could work on as a semester project. So I punted. I typed coral reef controversy into the Google search box, and I found something really interesting. Scrolling down just a little bit, I found this: the women with a controversial plan to save corals. The controversial race to breed climate-adapted supercoral. And it turns out that this woman, Ruth Gates, wants to breed coral that is better adapted to the warmer climates. She's calling it climate-adapted supercoral. And this looks like a great place to start finding a good inquiry question. And this article is helping me out a lot, actually. I love this quote by the researcher. I hate it when this enormously complex story gets translated as all coral will be dead in 50 years. And it turns out that these researchers are looking at the biological mechanisms that allow corals to fare better. They're going to sequence the genomes and pinpoint the genes that best equip corals for the rigors of climate change. In fact, they're going to artificially subject a whole bunch of corals to heat, for example, and see which ones survive the best. And just like breeding fruits, they're going to find the corals that will survive in the warm water the best, and then replant them in areas where the coral are dying. It is controversial. According to this article, the research is actually going to high schools and talking to people, explaining why this is a good idea. So it's definitely controversial, and I think I can make it specific. So how about this? After reading the article, question might be, should we use coral breeding or even coral epigenetic training to create corals that we then introduce to areas where they have died out? Should we introduce new species or new types of coral into old areas? It is controversial because some people would say, let's just focus on reducing the climate change, or what are going to be the long-term effects of introducing this new type of coral into this other area of the ocean. A couple of the most interesting paragraphs in this article talk about how they take the coral and then they train it to withstand heat and excess dissolved carbon dioxide, just like we do athletic training. The coral gets hardier and hardier, and then it can survive these harsher conditions, and even sometimes its children, its offspring, can survive these harder conditions. So these two paragraphs have given me a focus for my semester inquiry. And here's my new question. Should we use epigenetic training to create new coral and then introduce new types of coral into areas where the coral has died off? How does that stack up against our 4 criteria for a good inquiry issue? I think it does. It's definitely in the form of a question. It's definitely quite focused. We're talking about the very focused technique of epigenetic training. It's definitely very important because the issues of dying coral reefs is important, and it's framed in neutral terms. I'm not making a decision yet by my wording that this is a great way to do it. For example, a non-neutral way to frame this question would be, what are the 3 reasons that epigenetic training is the best way to fight coral reefs dying off? So in any case, I've achieved my goal of coming up with a research question that I'm fascinated by. It is in the form of a question, it's focused, it's important, it's neutral, and I know the name of a researcher who's doing research in this, so I should be able to find her articles fairly easily. Now, I must admit that the key to my success on this adventure was my punt when I just Googled coral reef controversy. So I encourage you to try that technique as well when you're narrowing down and defining your inquiry issue. Now it's your turn. Don't rush this. Have a good time looking into things that are interesting to you. Don't go too far down rabbit holes, but make sure that you put enough time into this so that you can frame an issue that will lead to success for the rest of the semester. See you soon.